Hello there, welcome to ITV News Meridian.
Tonight's headlines in the Thames Valley. The killer who battered a train passenger to death at Reading Station with a horseshoe is jailed. Thomas's family say the impact of his death has been immense.
Bills going up, but sewage bills are down, although Thames Water admits it still has a long way to go to clean up our waterways.
Also this Friday, Olympic gold medal swimmer Duncan Goodhue backs a campaign to keep Thames Valley leisure centres open as they battle rising energy costs.
Doris is actually pretending to be asleep. Doris, come on. See your ears moving. Come on, I can see your eye. Yeah.
And stop milking it. We meet the lazy dairy cow whose fake snoozing isn't fooling her farmer. Good evening. The family of Thomas Parker, who was killed at Reading Station during an argument over loud music on a train, say the pain and anguish of that night is indescribable.
42-year-old Kirkpatrick Virgo struck Thomas with a metal horseshoe, which he said he carried for luck. Well, he's been jailed for a minimum of 21 years. Mark McQuillan was in court.
One of the key parts of this morning's sentencing which stood out was the statement read out on behalf of Thomas Parker's family. It was moving and heartbreaking in equal measure. It described how the 24-year-old's death had impacted every aspect of their lives, how the pain was indescribable and how nothing could prepare them for that moment. That moment saw Kirkpatrick Virgo hit Thomas Parker with a horseshoe at Reading Station last July. It followed a row on a train where Mr. Parker's brother Craig asked one of Virgo's friends to turn the music down on his speaker system. Now, while that initial altercation was stopped by off-duty officers who were on the train at the time, crucially, it continued at Reading Station when they got off the train, and Mr. Parker died not long after he was hit by Virgo with the horseshoe.
I think it sends a very strong message that if you're intent on carrying weapons on the rail network and committing acts of such shocking violence such as this, then severe sentences are going to be handed down to you.
Thomas Parker's family said this morning that every day is a struggle. There is no moving on and no forgetting, and that the emotional and psychological scars they have will stay with them forever. 42-year-old Kirkpatrick Virgo, a father of four, will not be considered for release from prison for more than 21 years. Mark McQuillan, ITV News at Reading Crown Court.
In other news, Royal Berkshire Fire and Rescue Service has promised to take swift and robust action concerning any unacceptable behaviour. A national report by inspectors has found evidence of bullying, harassment and discrimination in every service in England, although the report does not mention any specific service. Oxfordshire Fire and Rescue Service says it will be looking very carefully at the recommendations and will act on them where necessary.
Campaigners say Thames Water is still not doing enough to prevent pollution in our streams and rivers, despite a reduction in sewage spills. There were nearly half the amount of discharges in 2022 compared to the year before. That's according to new government figures.
Well, Wesley Smith is live at the Thames Water headquarters in Reading for us this evening. Wesley, so the number of spills has gone down, but that doesn't tell the whole picture, does it?
No, Matt, and Thames Water will be the first to admit that that is due in no small part to the dry weather we had last year, in complete contrast to this wet night here in Reading. It's a fact underlined by the Environment Agency, who still say they want to see quicker responses to reducing spills from the water companies, but they also want to see them invest more of their profits in infrastructure, repairing burst water mains and the like, and they're not alone in that respect. Take a look at this. Now, this was the scene on the River Ray in Swindon last August when sewage pollution wiped out fish stocks on a 3-mile stretch of water. The Angling Trust demanded a full explanation from the Chief Executive of Thames Water and the water regulator Ofwat. And near Witney, the River Windrush, murky after raw sewage flowed in December upriver of a newly designated area of bathing water. Now, water companies are allowed to discharge sewage from storm overflows during periods of heavy rain, perhaps like tonight, so that the system is not overwhelmed, backing up into people's homes. But campaigners say they are discharging much more often than they should do. Vaughan Lewis is from the campaign group Windrush Against Sewage Pollution.
Same old, same old. The water companies continue to use our rivers as a cheap method of disposing of untreated sewage to save them the expenditure of improving their infrastructure. They've been doing it for years since they were privatised. They carry on doing it, and the environment reaps the benefits.
This afternoon, Thames Water welcomed the news that the figures had around about halved, and they went on to issue a statement in which they say, "We know that what matters most is stopping the need for the discharges as quickly as possible. That's why we've committed £1.6 billion of investment in our sewage treatment works and sewers over the next 2 years. This will help us deliver our commitment to a 50% reduction in the total annual duration of discharges across London and the Thames Valley by 2030. We're also currently increasing sewage treatment capacity to a number of our other sewage works across the Thames Valley, including Witney and Fairford, to be completed by 2025. Now, they go on to say they have a long way to go, but their ambition is clear. There'll be many people tonight saying they hope that ambition becomes a reality.
OK, Wesley, for the time being, thank you very much indeed. Well, those commitments and assurances come with the news that our water bills are going to rise from tomorrow. Thames Water customers will pay around 9% more over the next year.
But the body representing water companies says the price hike is still below inflation. With more on this, here's Nick Smith.
Water is an essential utility, and while it may not be subject to the same current market pressures on electricity and gas, households should still brace for bills to trickle up in price from the 1st of April. Customers with Southern Water will see a jump of 9.4%, seeing their bills top off at an average of £439 a year. Those served by Thames Water will see bills rise by 9.3%, with an average payment of £456. Nationwide, the average increase is at around 7.5%. So why is there such a difference, depending on where you live?
What people pay in different regions will vary, and that reflects the cost of treating water and sewage in that particular region, as well as the profile of different projects that are coming on stream that need paying for. So there is some variation, and also we do recognise it is a really hard time at the moment, which is why every company is stepping up and providing extra help for customers who need it.
The UK is home to the largest water treatment facility in Europe, where we can see exactly how the water we source for homes is made safe for us to drink.
So after the filtration process, the water is transferred into these tanks behind me, and what we do then is add some granular activated carbon, which works a little bit like your water filter at home and removes any final impurities from the water.
Those overseeing the operation here say bills are on the rise because of the investment needed to meet the demands of our population.
There's a great deal of investment going on in the industry, investment in resilience for the future, so protecting water supplies and making sure we have enough to go around.
Water companies are keen to point out most price rises are below the current rate of inflation, but it's still customers who'll foot the bill for infrastructure investment. And personal finance experts have a few tips on saving money, beyond simply remembering to turn your taps off.
Think about getting a water meter put in place to see if that helps track and give you a bit more power of how much you're actually spending. You can get your water reassessed as well to make sure you're actually paying the right price.
Rising costs will always deepen concern for customers, but water companies stress advice is on hand to minimise household use, as we aim to preserve as much as possible to contend with a future where this precious resource may come under more strain than ever. Nick Smith, ITV News.
Now you're watching ITV News Meridian in the Thames Valley. Still to come on the programme.
Hitting the hay when her friends are up for milking. We'll meet Doris, the lazy dairy cow.
And while we're seeing March out on a very soggy note, thoughts are turning to April. Is there anything better on the horizon? I'll be back later with the full forecast.
We are not holding our breath. No. That's a spoiler. Plenty more from us, of course, online. You can call us 0808 1010 095, and don't forget to follow us on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram.
Now, on the first day of strikes by security guards at Heathrow, the airport says it's been a busy start to the Easter holiday, but business as usual. Around 1,400 Unite workers in Terminal 5 are walking out for 10 days in a row about pay. The airport says it has contingency plans in place, but passengers are only allowed to travel through security with 2 items of hand luggage.
Well, our focus is on making sure there is no disruption, and that's exactly what is happening today. The airport is running smoothly. There are no queues. Even though this is the busiest day of the year, everything is flowing well. So if you're flying through Heathrow this Easter, you can travel with confidence. But we have a good plan. Many colleagues who could have gone on strike have chosen to come in anyway. Plus, we have a lot of contingency teams who have come in to help out. And so the airport is running entirely as normal today.
Well, meanwhile, work has officially begun on the controversial expansion of Southampton Airport. The decision to allow the runway to be extended went to the Court of Appeal. Bigger aircraft will be able to use the airport, which means more airlines, destinations and jobs for the region. Campaigners, though, believe it's a disaster for climate change and noise pollution.
Now tonight, the final part in our series looking at long COVID in children. We've seen the devastating impact it can have on some children, with many young people now disabled.
So what can be done to prevent it? Well, parents and some politicians are calling for schools to do more to prevent children becoming infected multiple times. They want filters to be installed in classrooms and more emphasis put on ventilation.
But with schools desperately short of funds, how is this going to work? Stacey Paul has this exclusive report.
There is growing concern about the damaging effect of repeated COVID infections in children.
In some people, accumulating COVID infections is not safe. It's degrading our health on a cumulative basis. That means that we're effectively aging faster. And I think that's going to be a problem for many people in the future.
Latest studies show that 1 in 7 children are still suffering symptoms 3 months after infection, and your risk of developing long COVID increases with every reinfection.
People who've had COVID 1, 2, 3 times with no problem are finding they're developing long COVID after their 4th infection. And this is where I think government messaging should be so important on this, because it's not a trivial thing being infected with COVID these days, because every time you do it, you're playing Russian roulette and you've got no idea how many bullets are in the gun.
Many schools are now becoming aware of how severely some children are affected.
The impact on different children has been vast. Some children barely notice it, some children are very, very badly affected, and for a very long time.
Parents who know only too well the damage that this virus can cause are angry that more is not being done in schools to protect them.
We're not looking after our children enough. They need to be looked after.
They're calling for clean air, ventilation to be a priority, and HEPA filters to be installed in all classrooms, so this airborne virus can be reduced.
They need to have clean air in schools. We need to be doing more for them, because long COVID is the worst experience of my life.
These parents are being backed by politicians who are calling on the government to do more.
Schools are old buildings generally, and they don't have good ventilation. We do not have in this country mechanical ventilation in schools. You've got lots of children in a small space breathing in the same air, and that is alarming.
Some schools are not waiting for government guidelines. Despite the cost, they've gone ahead and installed filters in every classroom.
It is something that we did have to consider really carefully, but when we're talking about the health of the children and the staff, it does make sense to put things into place that will keep everybody safe and healthy, because if you've got members of staff on long-term sick, that's a huge cost to schools.
All Saints currently have 2 staff members with long COVID, and one of their pupils has been badly affected, so they're very aware of the damage that COVID can cause.
It would be easy to think COVID has gone away, but it's not. It's here. We have lower immune systems than we did before, and it will continue to affect people.
That's why campaigners are calling for all classrooms to be fitted with filters and CO2 monitors, which show us the risk.
When CO2 levels are high, there's a strong chance that you're breathing in somebody else's air, and that second-hand air could be from an infected carrier. So high levels of CO2 will mean that there's higher risk of getting COVID.
So the monitors show us the risk and the filters reduce the viral load in the air. But cost means most schools are not able to afford them.
The argument that there isn't much money is a fair and sound one. But when you weigh it up against the cost of looking after the children in your care, what kind of price do you put on that? We're staring down the barrel, I think, of a future endemic long COVID problem. I think people will look back on what we're doing now and judge us.
And that's what motivated this head teacher to act.
I can go home in the evening and know that I've done everything within my power to make sure that this environment is the safest it can be for our children.
Stacey Poole, ITV News.
Well, we asked the Department for Education for an interview, but it was declined. In a statement, though, a spokesperson said they have now delivered over 700,000 CO2 monitors to state-funded places, including early years, further education and certain childminders and children's homes.
Well, the statement said having a monitor in every teaching space allows the levels to be monitored and identify when ventilation needs to be improved. We have also delivered 9,000 HEPA filters. Ventilation is an effective way of reducing transmission of airborne disease like COVID-19. The department said the school rebuilding programme will transform 500 schools over the next decade.
Well, as you probably know, we've been running those pieces about long COVID in children all week on the programme. We would just like to take a moment to thank all the families and experts who were involved in making those pieces. They are really comprehensive. If you've missed any of them, they are on our website. itv.com/Meridian is where you can go to catch up.
Yeah, do have a look at those. Now, the ITV Evening News continues with the national and international news at 6:30. To find out more, let's to London and Lucrezia Mellarini.
Coming up, could Donald Trump really end up in jail? That's the threat looming over the former president after criminal charges were laid over alleged hush money payments to an adult film star. We'll have all the reaction from the US. Also ahead, former England cricket captain Michael Vaughan cleared over allegations of racism and... crowds turn out in their thousands to greet King Charles and Camilla as they arrive in Hamburg. Join me for those stories and more at 6:30.
Let's get the sport now. Andrew joins us in the studio. I mean, it's a massive, every weekend is a massive weekend in the Premier League from here on in, but particularly for us at the top and the bottom of the table.
Yeah, I mean, this really is massive, and the nerves, they are jangling already. Yeah, what a massive weekend. Can our Premier League managers mastermind some massive results? In the relegation zone, Southampton's Ruben Sellers and Bournemouth's Gary O'Neill, they know wins are needed now with just 10 or 11 games to go. Well, up the table, Brighton's Roberto De Zerbi is looking to guide Albion to their highest ever finish. Bournemouth and Southampton know a victory could lift them out of the drop zone, while Brighton are aiming for a place in Europe.
The players, the club, I think our fans, we are ready to compete, to fight and to try to achieve on our dream.
Let's hope. In the Football League, our sides have either 8 or 9 games left to avoid relegation or mount a late push for promotion, the tension rising with the finish line in sight. Now, Olympic swimming champion Duncan Goodhue is backing a campaign to keep leisure centres open as they battle rising energy costs. Several pools in the South and Thames Valley say they could be under threat of closure, whilst others are considering cuts to services and staff in order to pay heating bills. Tom Savides has more.
Zero Accounting Software sponsors ITV Regional Sports Report.
A former Olympic swimming champion flexing his muscles to keep our pools open. Duncan Goodhue, who picked up a gold and bronze medal in the Moscow Games in 1980, is backing a campaign to get more government funding to help leisure centres with the rising cost of energy.
Before COVID, more people swam than jogged or cycled. So not having swimming pools open is a major problem, particularly for people who are disabled or not so good on land, because the pool is the only place they can get meaningful exercise.
Dozens of swimming pools right across our region are facing a difficult time because of the rising cost of energy. It's feared some could end up closing. That's why high-profile campaigners like Duncan Goodhue are getting involved in the campaign. In Uckfield in Sussex, hundreds gathered to demand their leisure centre stays open, whilst other pools across the South and Thames Valley are struggling with soaring energy bills. In his budget, the Chancellor Jeremy Hunt announced an extra £63 million for leisure centres, but campaigners say the extra money doesn't go far enough.
How will that funding be rolled out? What will the impact be? So we're certainly hopeful that it will provide some assistance, but I guess in the longer term, some of those issues are still going to be there around sustainability.
Some pools now find themselves in at the deep end as they struggle to pay huge heating bills. A new challenge is now underway with the help of an Olympian to keep them open. Tom Savides, ITV News.
It's also a massive weekend for our runners with the Brighton and Southampton marathons and the Reading Half. In Brighton, they're making a weekend of it, organisers calling it a two-day festival with the main race on Sunday. 12,000 people right now limbering up ahead of the big one.
Just incredibly excited. This event was looking like it wasn't going to happen at the end of 2022. We've had an incredibly narrow window to deliver the third biggest marathon in the UK, but it's looking all good. It's looking like it's all going to happen. Some bad weather today, but Sunday is looking great, and we're just incredibly thrilled about that, excited, and we can't wait to see everyone on the streets.
If you're running, have a restful night and good luck this weekend.
Yeah, absolutely. Brilliant. Thanks very much indeed, Andy. Yeah, Duke, best of luck. Now, speaking of getting a restful night, someone who loves to get a few more minutes of shut-eye in the morning is Doris the Dairy Cow on the Isle of Wight.
Best story of the day by some distance. Yeah. Many people will sympathise with Doris, who has gained worldwide attention on TikTok for her morning antics, pretending to be asleep to avoid milking. But she's not fooling Farmer John.
So this is what a stubborn dairy cow looks like. Look, everyone's out. Everyone's getting ready for milking, except for Doris. Doris is actually pretending to be asleep. She isn't really asleep. Doris, come on. I see your ears moving. Come on, I can see your eye. Yeah. Come on. What's that all over your face? What's this all over your face? Hey? Right, come on. Look.
She is wonderful, and so she went off to sleep again. Well, that video has been viewed millions of times online, and farm worker John Brodie, who filmed Doris at Reed's Farm in Newport, says she is just being cheeky, and he's surprised at all the attention she's receiving. I think she is beautiful. They're quite a pair, aren't they? I know how she feels. Yeah. I feel like I'm Doris, in human terms.
It is the oldest trick in the book.
Oh, my goodness,
but she pulled it off really well.
She was very good. I did that in the morning. I got up at the same time, and I lay, so I'm just pretending I'm going to stay asleep and not get up. It works for me.
And you do the earlies.
I do as well. I'm just like Doris the cow. Well, Pip joins us now. Pip, now March, it's been a bit of a washout, hasn't it? And especially today, it was just yucky.
Yeah, it has been a washout. In fact, we've got the provisional figures coming in for the month. Turns out it's been for England the wettest March for over 40 years, since 1981 in fact. And we've borne the brunt of it here down in the south. Southern England rainfall for this March came in at 219%, so that's more than double what we'd want to see. With that, the sunshine has really struggled, less than half the sunshine we'd like to see. It averaged around 2 hours a day, so not great at all. As you say, today has been a washout. This is why low pressure has been tracking its way eastwards across southern parts of the UK. Fronts bringing bands of rain, some torrential downpours, so we've still got all of today's rain to add on to the already rather soggy statistics.
Oh. Which all begs the question, when on earth is it going to get better? April, are we able to see that far ahead?
Yeah. What, tomorrow?
Tomorrow. Can a meteorologist predict the weather tomorrow?
Stick with me. Yeah, take a look at this. Yeah, so the low pressure we've had today is now moving away, and actually tomorrow and into Sunday and into Monday, it's looking a lot better. High pressure starts to build, all looking a lot quieter.
Like witchcraft.
I tell you what we can do. We can definitely look back. This is how the last 4 Aprils are shaped up. You can see they've been exceptionally dry. 2021, we had just 19% of the average April rainfall, and it just really remains to be seen whether 2023 will follow suit. I'll keep you posted when I know more.
All right, then.
That's clever, isn't she?
What about the next 4 Aprils? Let's do that one. Right, let's see if we can. Let's see what the weather's going to do tomorrow, possibly even Sunday. With the full forecast, here's Pip.
Feels like home, whatever the weather. Valent Boilers and Heat Pumps sponsors ITV Meridian Weather.
So after a thoroughly wet end to March, the start of April is looking a little more promising. As we head through this weekend, any rain will tend to ease off, the winds will ease down, we'll see more in the way of sunny spells coming through, and by day at least it will be relatively mild. So the low pressure we've had today is already starting to pull away eastwards. As it does so, high pressure will take over from the south and west, and that will be with us through the bulk of the weekend, settling things down at least for a time, and it should carry us into the early part of the new week as well. Still out there at the moment, still a lot of cloud on the scene, further outbreaks of rain and drizzle to contend with through tonight. The wind's still fairly brisk too, but with all of that it will keep the temperatures up, so another frost-free one across the board, and temperatures probably not much lower than 8 or 9 degrees for many of us. Tomorrow morning then, another fairly cloudy and wet start for some of us, but it won't be long before we start to see some improvements. The rain will gradually sink away southwards through the morning, the cloud thinning and breaking into the afternoon, some sunny spells coming through, and with easing winds as well. Although temperatures will be similar to today, it should feel a lot more pleasant. These are the times of high water for tomorrow. For Ventnor there, 8:57 in the morning, 9:37 in the evening. And then looking ahead, well, confirmation of the more settled weather to come through the latter part of the weekend and into the early part of the new week. Mild by day, but perhaps a few frosty nights.
Valent sponsors ITV Meridian Weather.
Looking forward to April, eh?
But was she right?
Well, we'll find out tomorrow.
We will.
We'll see.
Incredible.
Now, in just a moment, the ITV Evening News with Lucrezia Millarini.
That is it from us, though, for the time being. Thank you so much for watching. Have a fantastic weekend. We will see you very soon.
Bye-bye.